Hi guys, today we are going to talk about 5 tips to help you get unstuck. Now, no matter where you are in life, it can get overwhelming. Most of us are a lot better at juggling responsibilities than we think, and friends, a relationship, your partner, a career, and the list goes on and on. And it's easy to get hung up on making the right choices, comparing yourself to your peers, and imposing these unrealistic benchmarks on your life. But the truth is, there's no guidebook to living, no right or wrong way to reach your goals. So don't let your thoughts have you backed against the wall, afraid to move in the next direction. Just go ahead and do the next best thing. The rest will resolve itself with time. So let's get into the tips. Number 1, I want you to take the next best step. So if you're overwhelmed with the task at hand, the goal seems too monumental or far away to even know where to begin, or you can't even relate, I want you to remember that you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have the perfect plan. All you need to do is take the next best step. Take the smallest step forward that you can imagine. Forget the remainder of the journey and stick to the present. So ask yourself, what is that next best step I can take in my situation? Thinking in these terms will help us minimize the catastrophizing and analysis paralysis at play, and it simplifies the road ahead and makes each step more approachable. Number 2 is going to be reverse engineering. So you clearly know what reverse means, and you might be familiar with engineering, designing and building. But have you ever heard of those two words together? Reverse engineering is exactly as it sounds. So designing something backwards. The idea for this strategy is looking at the end goal and working backwards to determine each milestone along the way. So you need to ultimately think about the dream or the end goal, and then you're going to work backwards to figure out how you're going to get there. What are the action plans and initiatives to hit each of those milestones? And once you can create these plans, you want to be sure that you stay focused on executing them with the help of accountability. So that could be a friend, a colleague, and creating SMART goals. Number 3 is going to be changing your perspective. So one tool that I use in coaching is to help clients progress forward by having them identify their self-sabotaging habits or their cognitive distortions. Now, cognitive distortions are irrational thoughts that can develop into unhelpful feelings and behaviors. And the common behaviors tend to be procrastination, fear, and black and white thinking. So it's never anything that's really helpful. But in order to reduce or remove the distortions from our brain, we must focus at the problem at hand, that initial thought to begin with. So let me give you an example. Let's say you dread public speaking, and the last speech you had to give at work was an absolute fail. You screwed up the words, you forgot some lines, and you just butchered it entirely. And then a few weeks later, your boss asks you to prepare for an upcoming speech. You are absolutely terrified, and you failed the last one, so it's inevitable that you're going to screw this one up. And you try to pawn off the speech to a colleague, but that didn't work. They weren't falling for it. And, your reaction to your previous speech becomes your new identity. It becomes this narrative that I can't give a speech. I am just not that person. But those thoughts aren't helpful. So one way to get unstuck from this unhealthy way of thinking is to change our perspective. So what is another way I can look at this situation? If a friend went through this, what would I say to them? How would I provide support? So challenging that initial thought on that original event, so the public speaking, and not creating a thought on the emotion of the event will help you progress and move forward with your goals. So, for instance, if your thought changed to something, well, I didn't do so great at this, but I learned a lot. The feeling from that might not be quite as much fear. And so the behavior moving forward will be a lot less likely to be negative or abstain from, future conversations. Number 4 is going to be setting a deadline. So there have been many pros and cons to the pandemic and migrating from a work from home life for most of us. Now, the pleasure of sleeping in just a bit longer, wearing comfortable clothes on the lower half or even the upper half today, or being able to take bathroom breaks without anyone bothering you. Well, one thing is certain about this new lifestyle. It's been challenging for most to stay accountable to goals while working more independently. So there's something to be said about having colleagues in the office dressing up and showing up to the work at the office every single day. To be surrounded by colleagues that will kindly keep you in check. And although you might not be missing that pesky colleague in the cubicle behind you, you do miss some of that accountability. So setting guidelines or deadlines is an easy way to keep that accountability to yourself without depending on that push from others. It will help keep you organized and on track. So next time you're stuck with a project, whether it's personal or professional, try creating a realistic deadline for yourself. Give yourself enough time to finish the task, but make sure you don't create too much time for a little bit of wiggle room and too much comfort. Lastly, tip number 5, knowing your self-sabotage style. So this goes hand in hand with tip number 4. And we all use different styles of self-sabotage. So maybe that's black and white thinking. Maybe that's, procrastination. Maybe it's emotional reasoning. Whatever that is, it's hindering us from success. It's holding us back from accomplishing our goals. And so getting a deeper understanding of what our style is or what our method is going to be really helpful to overcome it, to reality test the situation, to ask the right questions to make sure, is this fact or is this fiction? So I have a quiz on my website. I will link it in the show notes below where you can take a quiz to figure out your self-sabotaging style, and then you'll immediately receive tips and questions so that you can reality test the situation to determine, is it fact or is it fiction? Well, guys, I hope this was helpful. You have 5 tips on helping you get unstuck. See you next time.